You're cooking. Bridgette, we need some help here. You have not enjoyed the fruits of this new format. I apologize for nothing. Welcome to Nemo Nation. Bridgette Blitch, of course. It is great to have you back. BB Legal is in the house. How you been? How was your 4th of July?
Oh, well, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here, Jimmy Mack. And Dave, thank you for the opportunity to join. And it was a great 4th of July. It was quiet. My son had his best friend over, so they swam in the pool, and we cooked out and did the, all-American thing. It was pretty good. I can't complain.
By the way, everybody thinks because I do a whole month of Halloween programming on anytime I get my hands on programming. If I have an October, I'm doing a whole month of October country. Everybody thinks, oh, Halloween must be your favorite holiday. The 4th of July actually is mine, Bridgette, and here's why. Because there's no wrong way to celebrate it. There is no wrong way to celebrate. You can go to some old big kind of extravaganza on a beach with bonfires and a $gazillion firework display with all kinds of food all laid out for you, or you can actually go into your backyard with a hibachi, make some burgers, sit down, eat some burgers, baked beans, and learn a little bit about the city of Nineveh. And I'm not being sarcastic. For years, this is really kind of groovy. For years, I would start about 2 days out. By the way, I'm not encouraging anybody to do this. I would actually watch the entire series John Adams over the course of the week leading up to the 4th of July, and then save the last 3 episodes for 4th of July. But I would also play BioShock Infinite on the PlayStation 5 because, after all, taking on a giant machine gun wielding George Washington is my idea of a good time on the 4th of July. There's no wrong way to do it, right?
I agree. And I'm with you on John Adams. That's probably one of my favorite series. I love that, and very American to place it on the 4th of July. I should sit down and watch more TV, but I guess my day job prevents me from doing that.
No. I just read this great column, by the way. I don't know if you guys saw it. Somebody actually interviewed the, Ezra Klein, who works for the New York Times. He founded Vox. He sold it off. But he had 4 tips for actually what he calls it social media hygiene. And one of the tips was, I forget the phraseology, but he basically said, don't pollute yourself. And he really regulates how much time he spends streaming and how much time he spends on his phone to maintain sanity. And any chance he gets, by the way, he reads print. Any opportunity he gets, and I mean hard print. He doesn't read stuff online. So staying offline is a really good thing, and staying out of streaming is a really good thing. Hey, you know what? It's why you still are smart. It's why your brain cells are intact. So well done. Well done. Welcome.
And then she comes here.
Yeah, and then she comes here, and then we kind of drain your brain. What's going on? What are you doing these days?
I'm doing everything. I mean, my practice is busy, so I'm doing everything from regulatory compliance to corporate restructure work to getting motor carriers paid and collecting freight charge claims to addressing cargo claims. And, of course, accidents, unfortunately, are happening, so we're monitoring those, managing those. So, yeah, it's never a still day in my life.
So one of the things we do here is just to get a sense of it, because we'd love to hear this. I have never asked you this question before. Where do you get your transportation news from other than, because if you're getting it from us, man, you got real problems. Where do you get your transportation news from? How do you keep up with your industry in regards to your profession as well? What are your go-to journals? What are your go-to informations where you kind of check in there to make sure that you're keeping up to date with what's going on with podcasts, newspapers, magazine, print journals, anything? Where do you look?
Yeah, so 2 organizations that I'm a member of really keep me abreast of current events in the transportation space. So one is the Conference of Freight Council, and it's a really cool organization. It's by invitation only, and we closely track freight charge, cargo claims, very operational specific issues to the transportation industry. And so we really lean on each other and each other's collective wisdom and experience and what cases are going on at the time to understand how courts are looking at a particular issue and addressing these issues. And so we have actually an email where we can reach out to the then president of the CFC and ask questions like, hey, we've got this scenario, what's going on? How has anybody else addressed this? Or I need an expert in a particular situation. Does anybody have a referral? So it's a weekly contact, which is great. And then twice a year, we meet, once in the winter and once in the summer. And then we offer up cases where we've had court orders that have been issued based on cases we've been handling. So we really share each other's wisdom in that regard. So that's one of them. The other organization is the Transportation Lawyers Association, another fantastic group of transportation attorneys, probably averages about 1,000 members, coast to coast in Canada as well as Mexico. We do have some international members as well. But it's another great resource that publishes articles and journals. We have our own transportation magazine that comes out quarterly. So another resource where everyone that is in this space is sharing their knowledge, sharing their wisdom. And then, of course, like the major outlets, you guys, of course, Save Nemo, Radio Nemo, Freight Waves, things like that come out through just general, publications, catching up on what's going on there.
One of the things we talked about last week, Bridgette, was setting up kind of a series of things that folks need to know, some basic stuff that's in your toolbox that should be in everybody's toolbox. So we could kind of get rolling on that right now if you want to.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, certainly, keeping abreast of the regulations and how to qualify drivers, how to protect your safety scores, right? Keeping your out of service ratios low is part of that. I mean, in the broader spectrum, right, we have a privilege, we have a grant of registration from the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration in order to operate either as a commercial truck driver or to operate as an authorized motor carrier or as a broker, right? So we want to protect that license, that registration that we have. So there's a lot to know with regard to those regulations. And there's a lot on a motor carrier's plate. There's a lot on a driver's plate to understand and follow to make sure when you do have those roadside inspections or those encounters with law enforcement that you're going to pass that level 1 inspection, right? You're not going to have any violations, that we're not going to increase up on our threshold for a possible what would be an intervention, right? We want to either have a not rated safety rating with the FMCSA or we want to have a satisfactory safety rating. So, Dave, one of the things we talked about is with regard to the qualification of drivers and the recent news regarding 49 CFR 391.11. I won't ask you what that is. You know what it is. It's the English proficiency regulation. And this has been on the books, right? This has been on the books for decades. As a commercial truck driver, you must read and speak the English language sufficiently to converse with the general public, to understand highway traffic signs and signals in the English language. You have to be able to respond to official inquiries and make entries on reports and records. So this has been an issue in my practice where we have drivers that come in where English is not their first language. And it's really important that they be able to meet this regulation. And so what we've seen, of course, is President Trump issued his executive order enforcing common sense rules of the road for America's truck drivers. This was in April. And he wanted to, in follow-up to his executive order on March 1st, making English language the official language of the United States, to ensure that the FMCSA was actually enforcing this regulation. Some of the situations, like personally, that I've encountered with clients is where you have a driver that goes out of service because they can't meet this particular rule, and then the driver uses an app as a way to try to communicate with law enforcement or some other tool or technology, and then the law enforcement officer then says, okay, you're not able to to converse with me, so I'm going to put you out of service. So the end result from my particular situation with my clients is, can we successfully data queue that challenge? Meaning, can we file a request for data review with the FMCSA and say, no, law enforcement officer, you were incorrect. This driver does sufficiently and fluently speak English in order to meet the criteria with the FMCSA. And that can be a difficult battle, right? Because it wasn't like that conversation was being recorded. And what are you going to fall back on? Did that driver have some kind of fluency test when he or she was onboarded with the motor carrier? It becomes a difficult burden to bear. So the FMCSA has now published a policy regarding how is it that law enforcement officers are to determine whether a driver can meet this criteria. And it's a two-step process. And one is the driver interview, and the other is a highway traffic sign recognition assessment. Now, to kind of get into the details here, the FMCSA says, the inspector should speak slowly but naturally and be mindful not to rush the questions and paraphrase in English as appropriate. So I know in college I took Spanish for a while, and I can't purport to know Spanish. And anytime somebody talks to me in Spanish, the few things I remember, it's really helpful if they really slow down, because all the sounds kind of come together, right? So I think they're trying to give these folks a fair opportunity to say, okay, don't rush it, because if you speak fast in Spanish, I can't follow.
Bridgette, I wanted to ask a couple of questions here to kind of, because I know you got some other stuff to dig into. So, we talked to Jane Jazrawi about this, and one of the suggestions she made to a lot of carriers was to have a plan of how you're going to make sure that the people you're putting out there on the road can actually, get through with a proficiency test. But the second question I wanted to ask you, and it's going to be a larger question, is how do you have a plan for how to challenge this? That should you and your legal team have a series of ducks in a row so that you immediately know how to respond when somebody fails one of these tests? And look, one of the reasons why this got shut down and changed over in 2016 was there were a couple of states, and we've had some friends at the CVSA who have told us this off the record, saying there were a couple of crucial states that were declaring people unproficient who were targeting people. Now, that's probably not going to happen this time because everybody's watching this program. But does it behoove a carrier to sit down and talk with someone like you and say, what is our plan of attack if, in fact, someone gets put out of service and, in fact, does speak the King's English?
Yeah, so, and that goes to, what are the tools that I can submit to the FMCSA through the DataQ portal to establish that this individual can speak English sufficiently to meet this rule. So I'll ask things like, when you interviewed this driver and they applied for the position, did you ask if English was their primary language, or how much did you interact, or how much did your safety department interact with them? Did you have a questionnaire that you asked them to fill out in English? Did you ask them to write a statement, a paragraph in English? Something in the qualification file that you can look at and say, yes, we gave this person a written exam, and based on the written exam, because English was, let's say, not their first language, we felt that they were able to sufficiently meet the criteria in this rule. So you can upload documentation through a request for data review. And in other situations where I've escalated data queue reviews to different tiers of a state analyst, there's other forms of media that you can upload as well. So if you had like an interview with the driver that you took a video of to show the driver being asked questions and responding to those questions, right, then that would be helpful for, let's say, a senior supervisor that's looking over this particular challenge to make a determination. Okay, based on this criteria, we see that that motor carrier felt that driver could sufficiently answer the questions, and we don't know what happened in the field for the law enforcement officer to make the determination that the driver wasn't qualified. But based on, let's say, the greater weight of the evidence that's submitted in an RDR, they can reverse that determination. Now, remember, it's a quasi-administrative review, right? It's the FMCSA that's been tasked with enforcing the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Regulations. So anything that you can have, like whether it's written materials or an interview, if you really feel like that driver maybe when they articulate their words might be, something that you work with them on to say, okay, don't talk so fast, make sure that the law enforcement officer can understand you as well, right? So it's important. So what training have you given that driver along the way to ensure that they meet that criteria?
There's a lot more to talk about, and I'm jumping in because we're running out of time already. But maybe we can pick up on this next time, Bridgette, because either 8 years ago, the CVSA made a big mistake by taking the English proficiency away from out of service, and now it's being put back in, and it's all brand new, even though 8 years ago it was old school and everything was running fine. But evidently, CVSA wasn't getting enough hits on non-speaking English drivers. Well, I guess I should speak better English. And so it wasn't that big of a deal. Now we're making it a big deal. So the question now, 10 years from now, is it a big deal or not?
Hold on to that thought, by the way. Both of you hold on to that thought. As I told you, fast and furious we come. Bridgette Blitch has joined us. She's the founder of Blitch Westley Barrette, by the way. We call her BB Legal, and she's very passionate about the industry. She regularly counsels motor carriers, shippers, brokers, warehouses, insurance agents, freight forwarders, ocean transportation intermediaries, and insurance providers in matters related to the execution of transportation contracts. Please go to BlitchWestley.com. Find out about this amazing law firm and about this amazing contributor to the show for a very long time. Bridgette, welcome to Nemo Nation, and we'll get you back on soon.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure. It's always an honor.